Money is often a taboo subject, but when you put into the mix a family business and perhaps a little bit of sibling rivalry, it can become a real challenge. My name's Russ Hayworth. I work with family businesses to help you to navigate those challenges to be better in business together. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about a specific question that I've had that relates to reward and ownership. And the question is, two siblings who own a business 50-50, but one generates more revenue than the other. So is it right that they should share the same level of dividend in that circumstance? So in order to tackle that, we need to break down two things. Firstly, we need to look at fairness versus equality. Now, equality would suggest that because the shareholding is equal, that the reward is equal for that shareholding. Whereas fairness would perhaps suggest that the person generating greater revenue for the business should be more adequately rewarded for that. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. But there's also something else happening here, in that there seems to be a confusion between ownership reward and employment reward. Now, if you take the ownership element out of that, the person generating more revenue for a business, the business would probably take a decision to say, well, actually, we need to pay that person more in order to protect that revenue. The dividend you're receiving is a result of the risk you're taking as an owner of that business. It's not necessarily directly linked to your employment role. So separating the two allows you to then have that conversation about what is fair and adequate reward for each of those roles. Secondly, be aware of expectations and assumptions, both your own and others within the business or family systems. So if your expectation is that somebody who generates more revenue should be more adequately rewarded, don't make the assumption that everybody feels the same way. Have the conversations about what you feel is an adequate reward for both the role that you perform within the business and the reward you get for owning that business. Once you've had that conversation, it's relatively straightforward to put something like that into a dividend policy as part of the governance that surrounds the business. And then it's there for everybody to refer to, and it's something that should be agreed on by everybody as being fair. And that's where fair process comes in. Now, fair process is considering everything from all angles and removing yourself from the situation in the family element, if that makes sense. So although you may be siblings and you may own the business, look at it from the perspective of what would this person be earning within the business if they weren't a family member? How would they be rewarded? Also, don't forget that different roles within the business allow others to make that contribution. So for example, a salesperson may be saying, well, I'm generating more revenue, but without a marketing or a administration function, none of those sales would happen. So again, that has to be considered when we're talking about overall remuneration. At the end of the day, whatever is decided, the best way forward is to have buy-in from all parties concerned. So rather than it being somebody dictate that I need to have more money, it should be something that is bought in by everyone that's involved in those discussions. And again, having the right forums to discuss that and having an agenda that means that it's covered means that it doesn't become a taboo subject. It's not something that creates this tension, because if you're feeling tense about it, that's going to come across in the way that you're operating yourself within the business. So bring it to the fore, talk about it in a safe way where it's not a taboo, and looking at it from a fair process perspective as to what would a non-family member be earning in order to adequately reward them for the role that they play. I hope that's been useful. On next week's video, we're going to be talking about governance and what it is. That's something that has come up an awful lot. So we'll be covering that in the next video. Until then, take care.